Welcome to this explainer. Okay, picture this. A tiny leopard gecko living for up to 2 decades. If you've ever wanted to absolutely master leopard gecko husbandry, you're in the exact right place. We're jumping straight into a rapid-fire, curiosity-driven crash course on their care. Every single fact, figure, and recommendation we're covering today is pulled directly from the massive Krawlo resource hub, which is rooted deeply in veterinary literature. So let's dive right in and learn how to give these incredible reptiles the absolute best life possible.
20. Before you even think about bringing one of these amazing creatures home, you really got to understand the scale of what you're signing up for. 20 years is how long a healthy leopard gecko can live in captivity when cared for properly. This isn't just a short-term temporary pet, this is a major long-term commitment. You're essentially taking on a companion for the next 2 decades, and their quality of life depends entirely on the specialized care you provide from day one.
So forget about those lush, tropical rainforests you might picture when you hear the word reptile. Your gecko's wild ancestors actually hail from the incredibly harsh, arid, and dry regions of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. Understanding these specific geographical roots completely flips how we have to set up their indoor environment. We aren't building a jungle here. We are carefully replicating a dry, rocky, crepuscular desert.
Section 1. The perfect enclosure setup. And that starts with an absolute minimum of a 20-gallon long tank for a single adult. Once you have the tank, what you put on the floor is quite literally a life-or-death choice. Safe substrates like paper towels or textured tiles are completely harmless and a breeze to clean. But on the flip side, using loose substrates like traditional sand poses a massive, sometimes fatal impaction risk. This is especially true for juvenile geckos, who might accidentally swallow it while hunting insects. The sources are super clear on this. Avoid loose substrates completely when they're young to prevent lethal digestive blockages. Now here's a crucial detail on how these animals actually warm themselves. Leopard geckos thermoregulate via belly heat, not just by basking under an overhead lamp. That means you absolutely have to nail an exact temperature gradient across the floor of the tank. You need a dedicated warm spot locked between 88 and 92 degrees Fahrenheit for digestion, a cool side between 75 and 80 degrees for them to escape the heat, and a natural nighttime drop. To safely hit those 88 to 92 degree basking temps, an under-tank heater covering about 1/3 of the enclosure is essential. But here's the kicker. Pairing it with a probe thermostat is absolutely non-negotiable. Running a heat mat without a thermostat can easily cause severe, horrific burns. You've got to use one to automatically lock that surface temperature in, and then verify it with a digital dual-probe thermometer. Even though they're desert creatures living in an enclosure with just 30 to 40% ambient humidity, they absolutely require a dedicated humid hide. Basically, it's a small, enclosed cave packed with damp sphagnum moss to create a localized 70 to 80% humidity microclimate. Why? Because they desperately need this moisture to soften their skin during shedding. Without it, they're incredibly prone to retain shed, which can quickly lead to permanent injuries. Section 2. Diet and feeding schedules. Since they are strict insectivores, their daily care requires a very specific menu.
You know, your feeding schedule isn't static. It's going to shift dramatically as they grow. Babies are growing rapidly and require daily feedings to support their bone and muscle development. As they reach the juvenile stage, you'll space this out to every other day. And finally, once they're full-grown adults, their metabolism slows way down. Feeding them just 2 or 3 times a week is perfect to keep them healthy without letting them become obese.
When it comes to the insects you serve, variety is absolutely the spice of life and the key to proper nutrition. A rotating diet of dubia roaches, crickets, mealworms, and highly nutritious black soldier fly larvae provides the best baseline of proteins and fats. But a quick note on waxworms. The Krawlo diet guides emphasize that these are incredibly fatty. Think of them like reptile candy. You must save waxworms strictly as an occasional treat to prevent liver disease. Now, because they're housed indoors and rely entirely on what you provide, feeding them plain, naked insects is a total recipe for disaster. You really have to follow this exact 3-step supplement routine to perfectly balance their intake. Step 1. Keep a small dish of plain calcium without D3 in the tank at all times. Step 2. Lightly dust their feeder insects with a calcium plus D3 powder twice a week. And Step 3. Use a reptile multivitamin once a week. This specifically replaces the nutrients they'd normally forage for in the wild.
Section 3. Health and common issues. Even with perfect husbandry, you need to be prepared to spot these common health issues. The most notorious issue in the reptile hobby is MBD, or metabolic bone disease. And the heartbreaking reality here, this crippling condition is entirely preventable. It's caused directly by a lack of dietary calcium, vitamin D3, or a lack of low-level UVB exposure. Failing to follow that supplement schedule we just covered causes the gecko's body to desperately pull calcium directly from its own skeleton, leading to weak, soft, and permanently deformed bones.
Remember that humid hide we talked about earlier? Well, this is exactly why it matters. If your gecko's humid hide isn't kept wet enough, retained, dry skin from a shed will stick to their extremities. This stuck shed acts exactly like a shrinking rubber band, painfully restricting blood flow. The sources warn that this can literally cause them to lose their toes and the tips of their tails within a terrifyingly short 48-hour window.
Also, if you're currently shopping around for a unique, brightly colored morph, pay close attention to this. The Krawlo buying guides issue a very strict warning against purchasing lemon frost geckos. While they look striking, the genetics that create this specific coloration are inextricably linked to severe, unavoidable genetic tumors. The source material strongly advises buyers to avoid this morph entirely, so we don't support the breeding of animals guaranteed to suffer from chronic health issues.
The next step. Let's look at how to elevate their care from baseline survival to absolute thriving. So, are you ready to upgrade from sterile paper towels and basic hides? The sources offer comprehensive guides on how to build a fully self-cleaning bioactive terrarium. Just imagine a literal slice of the desert right in your home, complete with custom soil mixes, live arid succulents that thrive in 90-degree heat, and a natural cleanup crew of isopods and springtails working around the clock to break down waste.
To make that bioactive dream a reality, or just to review any of the strict care parameters we covered today, head over to Krawlo.com right now. The Krawlo Leopard Gecko Resource Hub contains over 165 expert deep dive guides covering everything from bioactive layering to understanding complex morph genetics. So what are you waiting for? Are you ready to dive into the research and give your gecko the incredible, thriving 20-year lifespan they truly deserve?